Well, you can tuck several $1,000s away of pre-tax dollars from your taxable income into these HSA plans. So like one tip that we implement in our strategy is that we're funding our HSA that we have access to with a lot of, as much as we can annually, but we don't use that for our annual premium.
Welcome back to the next episode of Team Whitaker. I'm Barbara Whitaker.
I'm Huey Whitaker.
What are we talking about today? Because we're changing it up. And first, we just got done working out. I just got done working out. He worked out earlier, so I'm still a little red. Heart rate's still coming down. But we wanted to hop right into it. So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, it must be nice to be able to turn red. So we're going to be talking about open enrollment as October nears to the end and November is coming fastly approaching. So we wanted to talk about open enrollment and the options that you have, because these decisions that you're going to be making is going to really be stuck, or you're going to be stuck with, unless you have a life event for the remaining the whole 2026.
So one of the things we often talk about as part of our strategy is to have a W-2 position for many reasons. It's not the case for everybody. Absolutely, you can jump full force into your business once you get to that place and steady. But for our strategy, that's part of what we do. I don't really manage my 401k. My husband's in financial advising, so he does that for us. But if you are not as distinguished as he is in financial advising, what we're going to hit on today, hopefully he'll be able to give you some pointers of what you can take away and hit with your 401k. So can I jump right in?
Yeah, and these are all real life. I mean, a lot of these we're implementing. One of our great family friends that we admire so much, Maria, I was speaking to the other day, and she even brought up, that's my sister, twin, that's my twin. And she even brought up one of these points. And so it just kind of, maybe brought light to it. And we were like, you know what, probably a good time to visit this.
Yes, Maria is definitely in our circle. And we talked about that on another episode. So first question that I have is, if I have a 401k and my employer contributes to my 401k, what are the ways that I can really maximize my return on my 401k? But in addition to that question, how often should I be looking at it? Because I don't look at it often. That's kind of like what you do for us. So what do I do?
Yeah, I mean, you do have to manage and monitor all of your assets, right? And so some of them should be some that are liquid, maybe, and maybe not invested outside of the mind if you're building a savings strategy around it. Because really, the more you look at it, the more, especially if you're building it, because the more you look at it, the more you want to tap into. Once you have yourself established and going and you have investments and they're cooking for you, you want to let them cook, but you do have to manage and monitor. The suggestion would be quarterly. And so it's how we look at our finances generally anyways. I mean, sometimes we look more frequent than quarterly, but I would say you need to look at it quarterly. And I mean, there's no sweet spot and magic trick to really get your 401k accelerated. But I would say there are things that you want to stay away from. Sometimes a 401k will have these kind of, I would call them annuity or like fixed kind of rate or fixed payout options. Those are going to be built more for lifetime income and not necessarily for growth. So those aren't necessarily going to grow your 401k. And then the other thing is a lot of time, and they're not terrible, but they're also not the best way to grow, are these target date funds as well. They're based off of your age. It's a cookie cutter approach, really, solely based off of your age. And so the younger you are, the more risk is going to apply to that model. And as you age, it's just going to change into what fits your risk profile for your age, the age band that you're in. And if you don't pick any funds, it typically does default into those target date funds. And so if you can maybe take a little bit more hands-on approach, obviously you can seek counsel like we talk about, but you can also just take a little bit more hands-on approach. If you feel and hear on the news that real estate is going well, You probably have some real estate funds in there, et cetera, right? So index funds are always good, right? It gives you a broad stroke of the market and broad exposure. Although if you know about the Mag 7 and you know about kind of those technology stocks, they're really concentrated, or they have really concentrated the S&P. So, but generally index funds are going to be good and low cost options.
So if my employer is contributing a percentage, do you usually recommend to max that out, or is like, if I'm a conservative kind of investor and are concerned about, how my 401k grows, do you usually suggest to max out what the employer provides?
Yeah, it's free. I mean, if I'm going to give you $100 today, you're going to take it. It's free money. So max that out. We usually do look at alternatives, and it may be a 401k, but we look at alternatives when it is something above and beyond that, right? Because maybe we need to create a tax-free bucket for you to start growing, or maybe we need to create a liquid bucket that you can access at any time with the additional funds. But maybe you need to max that out above and beyond that match, because that's going to bring your taxable income down. So for other reasons in your kind of overall financial picture. So it does matter, but typically take that money. Like if it's 4%, take at least 4% and maybe more depending on your financial situation.
So what I'm hearing is it's not a one size fits all solution. It really does matter what you do depending on where you are in your financial strategy, basically.
Yeah, really, it never is. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're just starting out, yeah, there are some basic principles. You need to save, put money away, and have a forced saving strategy. But ultimately, once you get to a place where you have a little bit of savings and you're trying to invest, it needs to be custom to you, the ability that you, or I would say the amount that you're willing to invest and the amount of risk you're willing to take on. And just keep in mind, the 401k does have fees built in most cases. So just because people don't see like what the fees are, they think they're not there. Just be mindful that, there are different things and different opportunities that you can maybe be taking advantage of. You just need to explore and understand it. And typically all of this stuff is outlined in a plan document. And then there's 404A disclosures that you can look at. And I know I'm getting a little technical, but ultimately you can figure all this stuff out and find this all out whenever you want, if you want.
So never let it sit and not just touch it. You want to actively manage what's going on there.
Yeah, again, it doesn't need to be every week or every month, but quarterly is important. And also if you have old 401ks, right? Like you want to look at those. You typically don't want to leave those sitting around in other employers.
That was my next question is like, okay, let's say somebody is changing positions and they had a 401k at their old position, they're changing to a new company, and maybe that new company does or does not offer 401k. Let's say it doesn't. That person may not have had a relationship with the company that was managing their 401k at the old company, and now it's sitting there. So what do you suggest are the next steps that they take when they make a change from one employer to the next with that old 401k?
Yeah, a couple of misconceptions. The first one is that, and a lot of people understand this one. You can't contribute. Once you leave that employer, you can't put any more money in there, and you pretty much lose your benefits. Now, a lot of times that employer or the administrator of the employer that holds the 401k, manages it, will roll it into an IRA automatically. And they'll just roll it over into like a rollover IRA, and it just sits there, right? And whatever it's invested in, it just kind of goes with the wind, right? Up and down, whatever happens. The other thing is a lot of people think, well, my new employer matches 4%. I want to roll that money into the new employer. Well, you're not getting a 4% match on any monies you're rolling over from the old 401k into the new 401k. And a lot of times, I don't want to say we discourage it, but we want to make sure you understand your options. A lot of advisors will, kind of feel that money's in jail. When it's in the 401k, we say it's kind of locked up because there's just limitations. There's limitations to the investment options you have, but then there's also limitations to the access of the funds. You also don't want to touch the funds if you're under 59 and a half, unless there's an emergency. And then there are a couple guidelines that get you out of the IRS penalty of 10% that you would have imposed upon you, and the taxes that you have to pay on that money. But emergency is an emergency, right? And if you need to do it, you need to do it. But in some 401ks, you can't do it, unless you're taking a loan. They have that provision. Not all 401ks allow for that, but typically the recommendation is to roll that into an IRA.
Okay.
A 401k you're a participant in. An IRA you own. Same as renting and owning a home, right?
Okay.
There's just differences. You have different benefits. In your IRA, you can control it. You decide what you want to do with it. Penalties still there, taxes are still there. Flexibility is also now a newcomer to that situation.
Okay. So in the same vein, but talking about a different employer benefit, I hear a lot about HSAs, and maybe you can just kind of give a brief overview of what a HSA is for those who don't know. But what are some of the ways that people can maximize their access to their HSA? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so HOA is Barbara's thing. To me, asked me about the HOA today too, about some of the Halloween things that are going up in front of people's houses.
Talk about that next week.
Yeah, so HSAs are an interesting vehicle. It's a health savings account, and it's tied to a high deductible health plan. And you're able to save additional funds, I guess, against what your deductibles are going to be, because you have a high deductible typically in these plans, right? Low premiums, high deductibles, whether it's for individual or families. So these HSAs were established to really help you save additional money to pay for those deductibles during the year when you need to.
Okay.
They are pre-tax, so you can save in them pre-tax straight, from your employer, right to the HSA. And most of them now are tied to HSA bank, or there's a lot of banks out there that also will manage those HSA plans, and then you have an investment component to it. So again, when we talk about maybe some pre-tax dollars that can come out of your taxable income, you can start to now defer this taxation into the HSA plans. And there's a limit for individuals, somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000, and then also there's a family limit where you can max that out, and then there's catch-up provisions for your 401k and HSA plans, where you can tuck several $1,000s away of pre-tax dollars from your taxable income into these HSA plans. So like one tip that we implement in our strategy is that we're funding our HSA that we have access to with a lot of, as much as we can annually, but we don't use that for our annual premiums or healthcare costs at all. Where we have that in the investment portion, it's tied to an investment option. So that's being invested, and that's just growing. You can let that defer and let it grow, and it just continues to roll over. And in retirement, you can now use those funds for qualified health expenses, Medicare premiums,
medical
a lot of medical costs that you're going to have in retirement that you can now apply these tax-free dollars to. So essentially, it becomes like a triple advantaged strategy, right? Because you get pre-tax dollars going in them, they grow tax deferred and tax, efficiently, or tax-free, if you will, because there's no capital gains being applied to them or anything. And then when you use them, they're tax-free, right? Like you're not getting penalized on them. So that's a huge way to build something substantial to, again, create another bucket at some point in time in your life. And so that an HSA can be a great vehicle for that.
What are some of the ways that we as employees that has or works for an employer that has benefits, what are some of the ways we can leverage our employer benefits?
There's a few, right? And again, you go to your plan that will really give you a description of all that you have available to you, and there's probably more than you knew. Right, some companies, they have like a employer stock option plan, and sometimes you can even buy other investments, mutual funds, all kinds of different things. But I would say that the general ones you should always look for: life insurance, disability, and then any kind of financial savings plans, whether it's a pension. Again, we talked about the 401k, take advantage of that match.
Stock options.
Yeah, employer stock options, which is a great one. Sometimes you have commuter benefits. So, if you are in some sort of a city situation where you have to pay for parking, you might even be able to get reimbursed. I know we have that. I think it's like $80 a month if I wanted to get or a reimbursement. So I can use that for like private parking. So you might have different benefits. You might have a gas stipend. You might also have like a reimbursement for like daycare or expenses for your kids. And we have that, and we utilize that in the thousands every single year, pre-tax money, and then we're paying for those childcare expenses. But the disability, sometimes you're getting, and you don't even realize what you're getting. Sometimes you're either getting long-term and then you don't get short-term. And so you would need to purchase a short-term disability product, and it could be pennies on the dollar. It's very inexpensive. And then also with like life insurance, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But if you look into it, I mean, you may be paying $5 a month for $200,000 or $300,000 in coverage while you're working.
And you don't have to do any
you don't have to do any medical or any
Just
proof of insurability. I mean, those are easy ones. And of course, we recommend that you should have some outside insurances, right? Because you're going to retire at some point. You're not going to work forever. And maybe you just need something that's outside of that employer because you're not exactly sure what the future holds, right? So you should get some independent insurances to protect whatever it is that you feel you need protection around. But you can boost it up by whatever the employer is offering. And again, it's very inexpensive. There are sometimes great benefits. I would challenge everyone that's watching to just get your employer plan benefit description, guide, booklet, whatever it is, and just understand what your benefits are. Look into them, see what you can maybe take advantage of that you're not. We get $1,000 every single year. I don't remember what they call it, but I think it's called like a Be Well reimbursement. It's just a reimbursement. We can use that on a gym membership. I use it actually against my HSA contribution. So you can use it in several different ways, but you need to just understand what you have, because for people that don't know that's there, they lose out on $1,000 every single year. And there's surveys that we can do annually that will pay another $600 a year. I don't do those.
The match program,
yeah,
too.
I don't do those.
The give back program. A lot of companies and corporations have the match program, so you're giving donations and then you can help certain organizations.
Large donations in the thousands. Big companies will give matches in the thousands per employee per year. Another great point. And again, you won't know that until you look into it. We get we get vendor pricing for vehicles. I purchased my SUV and saved several thousands ordering the brand new SUV the way I wanted it, and got it less expensive than if I would have went anywhere around here on the lot for a used vehicle, the same model, same year used. I got it less expensive through the vendor program that we have through the employer. But not knowing that and not understanding, actually I mentioned that to someone recently and they didn't know. And so that's the key, is knowing. So I would just challenge everyone to go find out, dig into the information, and just leverage it, because you'll have 10 to 14 days to decide your full 2026, unless you, again, have a life event. So it's important to know what you're saying yes to and saying no to. And a lot of times, some of these benefits won't come up against your options when you're just clicking through. You have to understand that they're there.
So what I'm gathering and what I'm putting together is, get yourself a partner that's a financial advisor, because look, I got mine over here. Get you one. Make sure you assess your employee guide or your benefits plan guide that your employer may offer you. There's probably some things in there that you never knew. And if you need some guidance, maybe like understanding the information, you should maybe reach out and get some help and assistance so you can maximize the benefits that you have.
Yeah, an easy way is, in the break room, or you have a colleague that you trust or know that they do well, a supervisor, boss, like ask them, hey, what do you do? I know we have open enrollment. Anything I should know about that you started doing it? Just ask them. I mean, again, you have to seek it out in order for you to obtain it sometimes. And this is one of those times. It's very important because you're going to determine your whole year next year based off of a few days. So make the right decisions. And sometimes, another tip, you just have to go in there to make sure that you're marked as a non-smoker. Companies will default their rates to, if you're a smoker or non-smoker, and it defaults to smoker every year, you have to go in there and select non-smoker at a minimum. And again, some people aren't even going in there. They just let it just roll over every year. Just go in and take a look.
I think that's a good place to end. Anything else?
We're non-smokers.
We are. Okay, so until next time, start strong, grow bold, be fruitful.